Captain's Log, January 7th, 2016. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. Cap, why on earth are you talking about Fuller House, of all things, especially over the Daredevil Season 2 teaser? And the answer is, well, I don't really have a lot to say about the Season 2 teaser. It's not really revealing any footage or anything from that show, besides, showing a Punisher symbol at the end, which, of course, we were all well aware that we were getting Punisher in that season. But it's pretty much just a lot of line. I mean, it's an incredibly wonderfully well-made teaser and makes me even more excited for the season, of course, just reminding me about all of the major plot points and ideas that I'm sure it's driving home and trying to refresh us on, because it's going to build on that stuff. And I will say that the picture of the inside of that cathedral with kind of the collage of all those images from that first season, important prominent images, is really fantastic. And I'd love to have that on a poster or a t-shirt, or especially like some kind of 3D diorama thing or something. I can't expect that something like that would be released from a teaser, but I kind of wish it would. It looks amazing. Somebody who makes images that go on like T-Fury shirts or one of those daily shirt sites or whatever, get on that, because that needs to be a t-shirt. Anyway, but I'm talking about Fuller House because that's how long that video would have been if I did a video on the Daredevil Season 2 teaser. And we got pictures today of from that show, the pilot, or maybe I don't know if it's just the pilot or even episodes after that. It's a Netflix show. I actually don't remember if that show is going to be all launched at once or if it's going to be released weekly. There are some streaming things now that are being put out once a week instead of all at once. I don't know if Netflix done any of that yet, but there have been a couple others that have done that. I think Hulu's had one like that. But anyway, it's hard to keep up with all of them now, and like that's becoming such a streaming is becoming such a viable option now that trying to keep up with all the streaming shows just because they're streaming shows and trying to remember what they all are, especially once you get into like limited series and all that stuff, is just as impossible as trying to keep up with every network show at this point. But anyway, so I'm going to make this as short as I can so that I can hurry up and get this wallpaper off my computer. But Full House is a thing that I don't like anymore, that I grew up with a little bit, and it was kind of just a thing that everybody watched when I was a kid. And my mom watched a lot of sitcoms, and I grew up with The Cosby Show, and I grew up with that show. The Cosby Show is a weird thing in my head now after what's been happening with Bill Cosby, but that's neither here nor there. And you had The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and so I watched all that stuff, and it's a thing that does not hold up. I don't think you go back to it, and it's it's just a really awkward show. Like, nothing is really funny, or at least not very much is funny, and I feel very pandered to. Not that I've gone back to that a lot, but the couple times that I have happened to catch an episode on TV or whatever, it's a thing that was kind of everything that was wrong with sitcoms in the 90s that shows like How I Met Your Mother and things like that were kind of trying to lampoon and maybe sort of get past, although people have argued that How I Met Your Mother was exactly that kind of a show masquerading as a satire of that kind of show. But with the way laugh tracks are really irritating a lot of the time in general. I've seen shows use them better than other shows. But with Full House, it really felt like it was just trying to make you laugh at everything and give nobody any credit and say this is everything's funny and you're supposed to be laughing at everything. And if you really start to think, you realize just how brain dead you are watching that show when you realize, wait a minute, this isn't funny, and this isn't funny, and I don't know why these people are laughing at it. And then you have, and I don't care if it was taped in front of a studio audience, this stuff's not funny. I mean, studio audience is the brain-dead laugh track with a sign that tells them when to laugh, too. So they're just doing their job from, being brought on set to watch that show. I know some shows pay people to come on and be the audience, and I don't know if that show did, but that's a, that's for the duration you're there. It's sort of a job. You as the member of the audience, you're supposed to try to make it look good. Worse than that though was the music, where almost every episode you get toward the end and you get that really sappy like piano music or whatever that would tell you that now you're supposed to now you're supposed to feel something. Now you're supposed to be sad, and so it's just constantly telling you to turn off your brain and feel however it wanted you to feel. And anyway, that's kind of stuff just drives me crazy. It was just absolutely sappy, and I'm wondering so the deal with Fuller House is I'm very curious about it, and I wanted to make a Captain's Log about it because I'm not going to be able to help myself but watch the first episode, and that kind of makes me sick. Like, it's a show I don't like. It's a thing that's kind of the epitome of a lot of the like sickeningly wholesome things in the 90s that were a lot of the problem with that decade, where like you'd go too far in the dark and cynical place, and then you'd feel the need to try to combat that with something that was like completely lacking in substance and just wholesome for the sake of wholesome, with no sense of any sort of consequences for actions or giving characters any sort of dimension or anything. And so you had both sides of that spectrum in spades in the 90s. And that show, like I said, is kind of, for me, one of the big epitomes of, one of the examples of the epitome of, what was really kind of wrong with entertainment in that decade. And yet, I have this obnoxious nostalgia switch that I am incapable of turning off. And I bring this up all the time, but it's another one of those things where I remembered it from when I was a kid, and as soon as I saw those pictures, I went, I'm gonna end up watching the first episode of that show. At least I'm not gonna be able to help it, and I feel almost guilty about that. It's ridiculous, but I found it remarkable looking at those pictures. First of all, it's really cool that they rebuilt the Tanner House set, and that they're gonna have that house. But I thought it was remarkable how little a lot of the actors seem to have changed. I did a double take. I saw the picture kind of smaller before I enlarged it, and was like, is this a picture from like the show from 20 years ago, or is this from Fuller House? And then I looked at it closer and went, oh, okay, like Bob Saget is older, but like everybody kind of looks the same. I don't mean that they haven't aged. I just I was kind of impressed with that. John Stamos is suddenly everywhere right now. He's gonna have two shows on at the same time. He's got a new show on right now, a comedy that Grandfather, that I've not seen, but I guess is gotten some traction and is pretty popular. And he was one of those actors for a long time. I was like, I wonder what happened to that guy, and now he's kind of everywhere again. And it's going to be sort of interesting to see some of these actors suddenly come back out of the woodwork. And so I'm going to look at it for morbid curiosity, but I also want to see how contemporary it ends up being, and whether or not it ends up being kind of a parody of itself. Like, could it end up being good in the sense that it totally gets how completely fake-ish that show was, and it comes back and kind of does it in this tongue-in-cheek way where it's exactly the same thing, except it knows it this time? And, like, that could kind of be funny. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many seasons of that a person would want to sit through, but to see that show, like Full House is a thing that I could have seen coming back as a TV movie, like a lot of those sitcoms did, especially when you go back to the 60s and 70s. You had a whole bunch of Brady Bunch reunion movies, and you remember Ivan Ooze, the Brady Bunch reunion. You had a bunch of reunion movies, and yeah, there were spin-offs, and there were series that none of which were really successful. I don't think. But then you had the same thing even with Gilligan's Island. Had a number of movies, and I remember the one with the Harlem Globetrotters when they turned the island into a resort. They had the Harlem Globetrotters there. But anyway, I digress. That's a thing that I could have seen this doing, but I was just flabbergasted that they were going to bring it back with a lot of that same cast, and or at least with a lot of that cast coming back and making appearances. I guess the idea is that it's I can't believe I'm talking about this, that it's like Stephanie and DJ, and they have kids now, and they're trying to figure out how to raise their kids, or at least DJ. I don't know about Stephanie, but they're trying to do a parallel thing with her father, where the beginning of that show was it's this full house because everybody comes together to help Danny out with his daughters because his wife dies, and it was always really weird how like, again, sickeningly wholesome that show was, starting with this idea of what do you do with a big loss like that, with a tragedy. It could have been a smarter show coming out of that, but okay. And I guess they're doing the same thing with DJ, where you know, she's lost her husband, and now we're moving forward and everybody's in this house again. And I'm not really expecting anything from it. I'm not a big sitcom guy, but I'm just so curious about it. Is it gonna have a laugh track? Is it on Netflix, not on broadcast television, gonna have a laugh track? Was it taped in front of a studio audience? I'm just too curious. I have to know. Presumably it's gonna have that old theme song, or some kind of revamped, updated version of the theme song. If it was on TV, it would be like 3 seconds of that theme song. And this is going to be a Netflix thing. I would assume that it's going to be an entire, 45-second, minute-long intro, because we do intros now. I'm also curious about it because I've seen a couple of bits of the script that most people haven't seen, and it does look like, if they're using any of what I saw, that it's exactly the same kind of writing that show was. But I just wonder how it's going to be directed and acted, and again, if it will be sort of parody material, because like, what I saw wasn't funny. Just like I remember that show. But anyway, my son Jason tried out for Fuller House. He tried it out for the character of Max, and so I have seen a little bit of that script, and I had to help Jason memorize lines and put together a tape. A tape. I keep saying tape. We're in 2016. We don't use tapes anymore. I had to help him film it, and then take a digital file and send it off to someone. We were gonna have to fly out to Chicago for it, and then at the 11th hour, they sent us an email and said that you could just film something and send that off. And so Jason and I ended up doing it here. And Jason, by the way, is in modeling some, and so he gets calls for auditions quite frequently, and he goes out for commercials, and he was in a print ad for U.S. Toy. And anyway, every now and again there's an acting gig, and I didn't expect that he would really have much of a shot at that. I didn't tell him that, of course, because it's all really good experience, but he was young for the part. 5 was like the absolute earliest age that they were seeing people for, and they ended up not going with any Midwest talent at all for that show. I have a slight interest in it because of that also, but I guess the whole reason I wanted to make this Captain's Log was just to ask you guys what you think. Is it awful that just because I have a slight nostalgia for this show that I don't like because I grew up on it, I can't help but try out this new show? Is that just an absolute terrible thing? I know some of our viewers don't have my opinion on that show and remember it fondly and still like to watch it, because I got a little bit of flack, and some people also just thought it was funny, when I made a crack about Full House back in Spawn year, and I think I forget what exactly I did with it, but I think I was like making a list of things that I'd rather be doing than reading Spawn, and I brought up Full House, and people were like, "Oh man, really? Full House? You don't like Full House?" No, I don't. But anyway, and so that's part of the reason I wanted to talk about this too. But anyway, well, that's all I have to say about that. But anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and I'm sure the next Captain's Log will be about something far more in my normal wheelhouse. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Captain Logan, and this concludes today's Captain's Log.